is contrast training effective? Yeah, I use it, but I use it mostly because it's a easy way to structure training. Sometimes it's fun and you get a good buy-in because you finish a squat and then you go do a similar pattern. To me, it's kind of reminding your body like, hey, this is what we're doing it for. Get out of that slow grind mode and, finish it. Introduce it to your nervous system that, hey, we're doing a plyometric. We want to be quick off the ground. So yeah, you're trying to increase force over here. Great. But also give your body context to what you're trying to do. So I think it's fun. I think it gets good buy-in. I think it's a good way to organize training. I don't think it's magic. I see a lot of social media videos. I'll be on TikTok sometimes and people are like, contrast training is the ultimate cheat code for jumping higher. I don't believe so. Honestly, I think that if you equated for the total amount of work, you equated for intensity and volume, you would have the same exact vertical jump results. Whether you did contrast training, right, heavy lifting, followed up by jumping, compared to just doing your plyometrics beginning of the session and your lifting at the end of the session. Don't have to be combined, right? They don't have to be bounced back and forth. You don't have to do contrast training. You will get the same results either way, as long as the study equated for intensity and volume. So I would say contrast training for jump improvements, for speed improvements is extremely overrated. Now, overrated doesn't mean it's not beneficial. I think it could be beneficial. And like I said, it's a good way to organize it. It's a fun way to train. But as far as like the claims that it is going to get you way better results than just normal training, I do not believe that to be the case. I have not seen that. I've implemented it with a lot of athletes and I still do, but it is not going to be a significant benefit compared to regular training. And it's important to understand that because I think that a lot of it was based on misinterpretations from the research where they traditionally studied contrast training as a really heavy lift and then a rest, usually like 2 to 6 minutes. That's another thing. It kind of wastes a lot of time. If you're taking a 6-minute recovery, like it says to do in a lot of the studies, that's eating up a lot of your session time. But heavy lift, take your time, and then you go do a plyo. That is sort of how it's always been studied. So people assume that that is the best way to do it. When in reality, there's other studies that now show, hey, you could do regular power training. It could be a clean, it could be a high pull, maybe even a med ball throw, and then back off and do your jump. And it's working off post-activation potentiation. However, I think there's another misinterpretation, and that's that you got to keep doing sets and exercise through the whole session to keep getting that post-activation potentiation, when in reality, if you just added it at the end of your warm-up, so you do like an isometric mid-thigh pull and you get really potentiated, or you don't even do the lifting. You go play a game of pickup basketball, that warms you up and you get potentiated, for your nervous system is heightened from that game of pickup basketball. Now, when you go do your plyos, you're going to get more out of that plyometric session. You don't need to be a scientist to understand that after a game of pickup, you're going to do better with your plyometrics because you got a full sweat, you're warmed up, your nervous system is heightened, you're alert. So you get post-activation potentiation from that. So it really doesn't have to be from the lift. Could it be from a lift? Yes. I would say the game of pickup basketball and then doing the plyos right after, or the dunk session right after a game, as long as you're not fatigued from it, would actually be better. You would probably get more post-activation potentiation from that game of pickup basketball than you would from the heavy lifting. And if you do want to go the route of heavy lifting, it's possible that you could just do a couple sets at the end of your warm-up, or like a few phases in the vert code, we use a isometric mid-thigh pull. And we just do a few sets of it at the end of the warm-up, and then we're potentiated. And now you go in for your plyos. So to think that you have to do a squat and then do it again, and then to get that post-activation potentiation, again, you got to do another squat and then another plyo and continue that the whole workout. I think that's a huge misinterpretation from the research. That's never been shown, but I feel like people believe that that is the case. So I think contrast training is built off of a bunch of misinterpretations. That being said, it could potentially be a good thing unless you are getting tired from the heavy lift, and it's negatively influencing the plyometric that you do after that. So your rest time needs to be long enough. Or some people, when they're lifting, they get in this like grind mode. There's a different breathing strategy. You're kind of more like bracing. And then you got to go be athletic, where it's the opposite. Like there's not a brace. You have intra-abdominal pressure, but that's created through breath, not like bracing the core. And so you go, here's the easy way to understand it. You go from to that's explosive. When you hear somebody sprinting, when you hear somebody jump, you don't hear grindy. You don't hear, that's a bracing strategy. That's this like, if you want to use the PRI, Bill Hartman terms, that's a compressive strategy. And then the plyos, bounding, sprinting, that's more of like an expansion thing. And that's a relaxation. We want rotation. We don't want to brace the core stiff. So it is possible that certain people, when they're in that mode of grind it out, high bracing strategy, that could actually negatively influence the plyometrics. That could negatively influence the fluidity of the plyometrics or the sprint that they use on the back end of that contrast set. So sometimes it could be negative, sometimes it could be positive, but if you like it and you feel like you're performing well, then you should keep doing it. And don't let me ruin that placebo effect. However, if you're one of the people on social media saying that contrast training is like the king and you have to do it like that, no, that's a lie. You don't have to do it like that. That's really based on just misinterpretations of the research, in my opinion.